Chapter 11. To Hear the Movements. It was after 9 p.m. on a Monday night. I pulled around the corner at 1st Street and West 4th Street and parked illegally, putting Gertie's emergency flashers on. I was too tired and upset to keep driving. I had just hung up with my mom, and now all I could think about was the conversation I'd had with my grandfather over the phone a few weeks earlier. Besides, my new friend Nicole was going to call any minute with directions on where to park in relation to her apartment complex. We had never met before, only exchanged a handful of emails after she'd gotten wind of my expedition. She offered me a place to stay once I'd reached Detroit. The phone startled me when it buzzed in my hand, the van still idling. "Hi, Kristen, it's Nicole. We're on our way from the gym. Where did you end up parking?" Before I could bring myself to utter a single word, I began to cry. This was my first phone conversation with Nicole, and I was so embarrassed that I first tried to hold in the sobs until that seemed to cause them to double in size and volume. "Hi," I said shakily. "Is everything okay?" Nicole asked. "I'm so sorry," I said, now through heaving breaths and heavy tears. "I just hung up with my mom, and I need to book a flight back to New York. It's my grandfather. He doesn't have much longer." We hadn't yet hung up when Nicole and her partner Chris reached the van. It started raining through the humid night sky. She had no sooner parked and flung her car door open, leaving it unclosed behind her, as she trotted up alongside the van. It had been a few days since I'd last showered. It was hot. The air conditioner in the van had stopped working, and I was doubly sweaty from anxiety and sadness. I didn't want to hug her hello, like I'd done with everyone else I'd met so far, because I didn't want her to see me crying or to catch my stink. But as I slid out of the van, nervous to even make soggy eye contact, she leaned in. We stood in the middle of the street and embraced warmly as our silhouettes cast out behind us, drawn forward by the headlights of her car, still running. "Chris," said Mom. "Chris, are you there? I've got Pop on the phone for you." She was calling from St. Mary's Hospital. I was surprised to hear they were at a hospital, since Pop had been living at the Eddie Heritage House Nursing and Rehab Center, and that's usually where she'd call from if I ever chatted with Pop over the phone. The Eddie, as Mom referred to it, was just a few miles from the house he'd built for my grandmother and their 3 kids decades earlier in Troy, New York. He chose to move in a couple of years after his wife, my Gram, started living there. Before he moved into the nursing home with Gram, he would take a senior citizens shuttle to and from their house to the nursing home, where he would spend all day by her side, 7 days a week. Gram had had a stroke nearly a decade earlier that, not long after, bound her to a wheelchair. Stories of Gram's outgoing and adventuresome childhood, and strength and kindness as a mother, were never in short supply during family gatherings. Like the one about how, as a teen, she broke her leg after attempting to jump a barrel while ice skating across a homemade pond. The last few years of her life had taken away much of her memory and her words. She rarely spoke at all to anyone. I often wondered if she even recognized Mom after a while. My mother visited Gram every single day she spent in the home. When Mom had called, I was sitting in the passenger seat of the van, parked in the U-shaped driveway of Goodenraw in Lakewood, Ohio. I could immediately tell by her tone and cracked words that things weren't good. Pop had been on a gradual decline for a few weeks now, but I suppose it's a thing that's in many ways impossible to prepare for. "Hey, Mom. Yep, I'm here," I said. "Oh, okay. Put him on." Pop was notoriously hard of hearing. His large-lobed Italian ears, decorated with gray and white bristly strands of hair of varying sizes, jutting out from the inside and dancing along the top outer part of his ears, too, would make you think they were designed for catching sound waves no matter what. But over time, conversations turned into slowed-down shouting so that he could make out what anyone was saying. "Hey, Pop, how are you?" I spoke as loudly as I could without full-on yelling into the tiny mic on my phone. I was glad to be inside the van, self-conscious of speaking so loudly. "Chris? Chris, is that you?" he said in a slow, muffled way. "Yes, it's Chris. Hi, Pop," I said. "Oh, it's so good to hear your voice, Chris. Chris, how are you doing? Still traveling?" "I'm well, Pop. Yes, still driving around the country." "Oh, that's just wonderful, Chris. I'm so glad. Hey, listen," he said, and then he started to cry a little. I just wanted to tell you that I love you. And that I'm proud of you. I still love the way you were with Spirit. Graham and I loved going to your horse shows and watching you do those side steps and trail courses with that little pony of yours. You two were such a great team." "I miss the horses too, Pop," I said, now trying to hold back my own tears. "And," he paused for a moment, "I wanted to say goodbye, Chris."